Millionaire comes home early. The autumn rain drummed steadily against the windows of the black sedan. It wound through the tree-lined streets of Millbrook Heights. James Patterson sat in the back seat, loosening his silk tie with practiced fingers. At 52, he had built an empire from nothing. Patterson Industries now employed thousands, and his name graced the sides of buildings across 3 states. But tonight, something felt different. The business trip to Chicago had ended earlier than expected. The merger talks that were supposed to last 3 days had wrapped up in 2. James had surprised even himself by declining the celebratory dinner his colleagues had suggested. Instead, he found himself thinking about home, about Sarah, about the quiet evenings they used to share before success had consumed his every waking hour. "Take the back road through Maple Street, Thomas," James instructed his driver. "I want to see how the old neighborhood looks." Thomas nodded in the rearview mirror. He had been driving for the Patterson family for nearly 15 years and knew better than to question his employer's sudden changes of heart. But he had noticed something in Mr. Patterson's voice lately, a weariness that all the money in the world couldn't seem to fix. As they turned onto Oakwood Drive, James felt his chest tighten. The grand colonial house stood behind wrought iron gates, its windows glowing warmly in the early evening light. This was the house he had bought for Sarah when they were young and full of dreams, back when he still believed that wealth would solve all their problems. The car pulled into the circular driveway, and James stepped out into the crisp October air. He breathed deeply, catching the scent of burning leaves and Sarah's garden. The roses she tended so carefully were preparing for winter, their last blooms defiant against the coming cold. James walked slowly toward the front door, his expensive leather shoes clicking against the stone pathway. He paused at the entrance, noticing how the brass knocker needed polishing. When had he last paid attention to such details? When had he stopped seeing his own home? He reached for his keys, then hesitated. Through the frosted glass panels beside the door, he could see movement inside. Warm light spilled from the living room, and he heard something that made him freeze. Laughter, not just Sarah's gentle laugh, which he realized he hadn't heard in months, but other voices too. Children's voices. James felt a strange flutter in his chest. They didn't have children. After years of trying and heartbreak, they had stopped discussing it. The silence around that particular pain had grown so thick that neither of them dared to break it anymore. Quietly, he turned the key in the lock and stepped into the marble foyer. The sounds grew clearer now. There was Sarah's voice, bright and animated in a way he hadn't heard in years, and there were definitely children laughing and chatter.